Good evening and welcome to the parent conversations, the MFamily conversations for the month of March. I am Nicole Banks, Associate Dean of Students. I work very closely with Rachel Egelhoff, our program manager for MFamily, and happy to be your host tonight. On screen also is Saj McBurrows, who is one of our interns, graduate interns with the MFamily program as well. So we'll be introducing our speakers in just a moment and getting the session started. As I start to bring up slides, I want to encourage you all to know that because this is webinar format, you can raise any questions that you have using the Q&A feature here in Zoom. We will compile the questions offline, so don't be concerned if they don't move or don't advance, or if you don't see answers being typed back into the screen. We'll pause after both of our speakers have presented, and we'll invite each of them to respond to the questions we've compiled. So we will have a bit of an official Q&A segment before we close today. So I'll let them both introduce themselves, but we have great colleagues with great expertise about student well-being and mental health that really lead and or oversee and contribute greatly to the fabric of student well-being at the University of Michigan and our commitment. So I want to thank them for taking time to be here with us, and they show up whenever we ask and invite them to be with our parents, families, and supporters. So Mary Jo Daypree is the Director of Wolverine Wellness, and she's going to be speaking first. So I'll let her introduce herself, and then we will come back for Kayla Douglas from the Counseling and Psychological Services area, CAPS. So Mary Jo, I'll bring the slides up and you can take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Saj. It is so wonderful to be here with you. And even though we can't be in person, this is the next best thing. So I appreciate that. I'm going to kick us off in my role as the Director of Health Promotion and Wolverine Wellness. I thought sort of I'd start from a framework of how we think about student health and well-being on campus. And so this model that you're looking at right now is the model of well-being that we use on campus. And this model, I think, is really important for folks to know that what you're seeing, the actual graphic, was designed by U of M students. The colors, the font, how it's shaped, was all designed by U of M students. And really what it is a way to represent a multidisciplinary way for us to think about our own well-being. And so we think about this in two ways. We have multiple dimensions of our own well-being, and they're also interdependent of each other, right? And so the other thing that I think that's really important for us to think about is that this model is shared with faculty, staff, and students. And so it's a model that can really help us talk about what it means when someone says holistic well-being and we bring your whole selves. We really help students sort of understand each of the dimensions and what the resources here look like that to support how they can explore those dimensions. And so I just wanted to start that as a framing. And then sort of as the institution, we think about what are the programs, resources, and policies that we have that support people's ability to thrive in each of these dimensions. Next slide. So I thought it was important. I think that a lot of times we use a lot of words about what it means to be a health promoting campus, or how does the University of Michigan sort of live into this commitment to be a health promoting campus. And so a couple of things I just wanted to draw your attention to is that in September of 2021, the University of Michigan actually made an official adoption of the Okanagan Charter. And the Okanagan Charter is a document that really guides universities on how they think about integrating health in all aspects of campus community. And it really sort of helps a university community think about that health and wellness aren't just one unit's job, but that it's all of us working together. And so what you see in these four slides really are the first phase of the commitment for the Wellbeing Collective and the well-being at the University of Michigan, what our priorities are. So really up in that top left is that holistic approach to create a strategic plan and a comprehensive infrastructure. And what that really means is that what we think about in terms of health and well-being is we don't just sort of play whack-a-mole with issues that are coming up, but that we create a strategic plan that is based on the data and the community that we serve. The second one is fostering a culture of empathy, caring, compassion to mitigate the stressors in the community. Strengthen and coordinating services offering across the continuum of care for students. We'll talk a little bit more about the continuum of care during Kayla's portion of this. And that really, the University of Michigan has a wealth of resources, but our job really is to make sure that students and family members and everybody in the community can find the resources that are visibly and easily accessible to students when they need them. So really, this is the first phase of our accountability to the Okanagan Charter, and you can sort of see where we're going with that. Next slide. So people may have heard of Wolverine Wellness before. For some of you, you may have heard Wolverine Wellness at orientation. I always just like to remind people we are located actually in the University Health Services building on the lower level on the ground floor. One of my big sadnesses that can happen is I will meet with a senior who will say, I never knew this office existed. So I wanted to take the opportunity to share with the parents here and the family members here exactly where we are. We do use the model of well-being in a lot of our wayfinding, and that's one way that students can find us. But many students know where UHS is. It's on Fletcher, and we are just in the lower level of that building. Next slide. One of the questions I get a lot, whether it's at a resource fair, if I'm tabling, is what exactly does Wolverine Wellness do? And when you say health promotion, what does that mean? And what I really wanted to share with all of you is that we really think about health promotion sort of in alignment with the World Health Organization. So the World Health Organization lists these 5 core actions of health promotion. And so I just thought it would be so helpful for all of you to say, what does that mean? What does a health promotion unit mean? So we do a lot of prevention, and that can mean all sorts of things. It can be preventing stress. It can be preventing alcohol and other drug issues. It can be preventing sleep issues, right? So we prevention and reorienting services to make sure that people have access to the information to prevent harm further on down the line. Personal skill development is a big one for Wolverine Wellness for students who may be here and navigating sort of their own health journeys on their own. What skills maybe do they need now that were different than where they came from? And how can we help them gain those skills so that they can sort of live and thrive? We also create supportive environments, this idea that we help other aspects and entities on campus. We know that students report higher degrees of well-being when they feel like they're in a supportive environment, and so really feel that's a part of health promotion. We strengthen community action. That really just speaks to that promoting students' health and well-being can't be done in one area. So how do we help the whole campus support students' health and wellness? And then the last thing we really do is where we really go upstream and look at the policies and the systems on campus that either create pain points for students and or really encourage students to thrive. And so wanted to share sort of what health promotion is, and that Wolverine Wellness really acts as a backbone to make sure that these core actions are happening at the University of Michigan. Next slide. And those were a lot of words. What I wanted to show you with this slide is this is sort of how students feel us on campus and see us. I wanted to draw your attention to the far left. That is actually a screenshot from Canvas where most students have to go to engage with their classes. And you'll see that little blue arrow there down at the bottom, and you can see the little model of well-being. But what I wanted everybody here to know is that if a student clicks on that, they go to the wellbeing.umich.edu site, and that site takes them to all the resources in the continuum of care. But these are sort of some of the campaigns. You'll see the snooze campaign and the stay in the blue campaign. For those of you who have been to the big house, maybe, or one of our other athletic events, you might see stay in the blue, which is an alcohol harm reduction campaign. There's our wellness coaching and how we sort of dose that. The best fan experience. We also have Hawkeye, the wellness dog. And so these are sort of the more vibrant ways that students experience some of the wellness programs and services that we have on campus. Next slide. The last thing I sort of wanted to do in terms of giving you the whole overarching framework of how this is something that is called the Wellbeing Collective. And the Wellbeing Collective is, you can read all about it at wellbeing.umich.edu. So I just want to make sure, and I can put that in the chat when I get done talking. But this really is this idea that well-being is interconnected between faculty, staff, and students, and it's sort of interconnected between student life and academics and the operation. And so what you can see here is how all members of the community are really looking at how do we create circumstances where everyone in the community can thrive. I wanted to draw your attention to the big, at the far right. For those of you who are following Michigan basketball, that's Will Shetter, who helped get the word out about the Wellbeing Collective. And he has a great video. So not only is he an amazing basketball player, but he's been an amazing ambassador for the Wellbeing Collective and the work that we're trying to do to really create a culture of well-being at U of M. And then the other thing I wanted you to see is this emoji bean, the one with the big eyes, is you can see it's a little bit of a take on the model of well-being, but the emoji bean is also part of many of our campaigns. You'll see them on a lot of hats, you'll see them on stickers, but this reminder for students, especially, that they have a multifaceted way of experiencing well-being, and that we have programs, resources, and services that can support them in all of them. Next slide. I think I'm handing it over to Kayla.
Thanks, Mary Jo. If we can go next slide, please. So Mary Jo set us up great for this, but our mental health continuum of care is another thing that was created from student feedback, where students wanted to have one place where they could access the vast options for mental health care that we have here at U of M. And we know that there's no one size fits all approach to mental health care. So what we really like to communicate to parents and families here is that no matter where your student falls on this continuum, we have supports in place for them. So the way we really like to explain this is actually on our next slide. So we use this triangle to explain that everyone can benefit from self-care and different techniques to take care of themselves. And this goes for every student, faculty, staff member on campus. So at the bottom of the pyramid, that's where we really think about the things that benefit everybody. But as we go up the pyramid, all the way up to the top level where intensive care is, we can see that we have supports here on campus, such as inpatient mental health therapy through our inpatient mental health services through our Michigan Medicine Hospital. And then down a level below is our counseling and clinical therapy, which is where our counseling and psychological services, which has newly merged with University Health Services to become University Health and Counseling. That's where you can access one-on-one therapy, group therapy, and more clinical support. And then on that third level is wellness coaching, which is a service that Wolverine Wellness offers that students can also access through the mental health continuum of care. And I forgot to mention on the previous slide, there is a QR code, but I can drop that link in the chat later. That is to our mental health care continuum. Thanks, Nicole. Okay. So when we think about clinical mental health services on campus at U of M, there are so many options. And one thing we really want families to be aware of is here at U of M, all of our providers are experts in college mental health. So whether it's your student needs one-on-one counseling or they need support through medication management, we have providers both at University Health Services and at Counseling and Psychological Services that are trained and experts in working with the college student population. All of our services are free and confidential, and individual therapy can be offered both in person and virtually. UWell is a really incredible service that we started a few years ago for our students, and it's really great in times where students might be off campus, like back home in another state, because UWell can match students up with a provider in their given state, and every student is granted 6 free sessions of virtual therapy through UWell with a provider of their choice. So this can be a great option to use whether students are off campus or if students are on campus and are unable to access CAPS services during normal business hours. So maybe they have a really like rigorous schedule that doesn't allow them to go over to CAPS. This can be a great option for them too. We also have students that access this during the spring and summer, like I said, when they're home, maybe they're out of state, or even when they're studying abroad. We have psychiatry services that are available through University Health Services. They can help with supporting students with existing medication or exploring new medication options. And we also have a gender affirming care team, which is a joint collaborative care model from Counseling and Psychological Services and UHS, where we can support students with gender affirming care. We also have a collaborative care model for eating and body image concerns, and an addiction medicine clinic, and a sexual health clinic. There's crisis services that are available for students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One of the most important pieces of information you will hear today is that phone number to access those crisis services is found on the back of your student's M card. They can call that phone number at any time, any day of the week, and speak to a licensed mental health professional. So I always like to remind students, because you never know if yourself or a friend or a roommate or a classmate might be in need. And then beyond that, we also have case management services because we know navigating insurance can be very tricky. And we have experts that can help students navigate that, as well as screenings and assessments that are available online and also through our clinicians. Next slide, please. So Mary Jo touched a little bit on this, but at U of M, we are committed to mental health in a holistic way. So what that means is it's not just clinical, but it's also non-clinical services that are so important. And we showed that at the bottom of that pyramid on 2 slides ago. So that can come in the form of wellness coaching, which can happen over at Wolverine Wellness. They have also an incredible collegiate recovery program for students who are in recovery. And we also have several different peer programs. One thing that the research has found over the years is that peer support when it comes to mental health is actually just as effective, if not in some cases more effective than a professional. So we know that students have a lot of impact on one another, and we train peers on campus to provide peer counseling. So over at CAPS, we have an individual peer counseling program, and we also have other student organizations that we advise, such as the Wolverine Support Network and CAPS in Action, which is a peer education program. Wolverine Wellness sponsors a peer facilitated wellness course that is a great option for students to enroll in. You can actually receive like course credit for that. Mary Jo, I don't know if you want to mention anything about that later, but they also have health equity grants that are available for students to apply for through Wolverine Wellness as well. And then together, we both at UHC and at Wolverine Wellness offer all sorts of outreach events on campus. Those come in the form of workshops on topics such as stress management, perfectionism, which is something many students at U of M struggle with, anxiety, and supporting students in distress. We also have lunch series that are available for specific identity groups on campus. We know it's important to make sure that students have access to spaces where they feel heard and seen. So we provide these lunch series for those. And also, we have wellness zones that are really cool. They have massage chairs and different light therapy and self-care resources in there. And those are available to students all day long, just with the access of their M card. And we also have a therapy dog program and well-being supplies available. So as you can see, the options are very endless, which is why that website of the Mental Health Continuum of Care is so important. So please take a chance to familiarize yourself with that and know that if you do need extra support with helping support your student navigate this, we have managed care clinicians that can help with these insurance options and navigating that outside with community providers. Next slide, please. So just a couple important things for parents and families to be aware of. All students are eligible for CAPS and UHS services. Most services are free and covered under the student health fee. Over at University Health Services, there are some labs and like medications that might not be covered. So that would be billed through a student's insurance. But we will have more information about that available online on the UHS website. When it comes to confidentiality, we take that very seriously. We are governed under Michigan Mental Health Code. So what that means is unless a student is a danger to themselves or to others, we cannot break confidentiality. Students are able to sign releases of information, allowing their parents to have access to their health records. So if that's something that would be helpful, I would highly recommend navigating that with your student on the patient portal when they set that up, or your student can actually ask their therapist at CAPS about getting a release of information as well. And then our mental health staff across UHC, University Health and Counseling, is very diverse and reflective of our student body. It's something we're very committed to, and we want students to feel like they can connect with a provider that shares an identity that they might hold or might speak language that they might speak. So if your student is meeting with any provider and it doesn't feel like it's a good fit, just know that there are many other options, and we are well equipped to provide students with expert care, whether it's our psychologists, psychiatrists, or social workers across that spectrum, our health educators. We have trainees at every level, really ready to provide support for parent or for students. And then lastly, our consultation and referral process is something really important to note. So that same phone number that is found on the back of your student's M card, also listed at the bottom of this slide, is actually available for you as a parent and a family member to call and consult with our clinicians if you're looking for ways to support your student. We have parents call faculty, staff very frequently, and we actually have a team dedicated, our counselor on duty during normal business hours that's available to answer questions about how to best support your student and how to connect them to appropriate care. So just know that that phone number is also there and available for you too. But without that release of information, we cannot share anything with parents and families. And students are protected under the Michigan Mental Health Code and HIPAA over at UHS. Next slide, please. So family members and loved ones can be highly influential in the success of students on campus at U of M, and particularly when it comes to their mental health. I think students recognizing that their supports and the social connections that they have are really central to their like success, not just in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, is a huge part of the developmental nature of coming to college. So we encourage parents and family members to start conversations with your student about how their values that they've maybe learned at home or in their community might be reflected in their decision making once they come to campus. And keeping strong, positive relationships is a huge protective factor for students when it comes to mental health. So, starting that conversation can truly be life-saving in many ways. Um, One last thing to note on this slide is we have a really great, helpful guide for new students. If you can find it at the QR code at the bottom of the slide. It's got all kinds of tips and helpful just strategies to use when you first come to campus. And I have found this to be actually a really helpful tool to use when talking to parents at orientation. So you might have seen this before, but this booklet is really helpful for students, but parents too, and has a lot of really great language that you can use when it comes to starting that conversation. Next slide, please. Okay, so we know that, of course, there are so many options at U of M. We don't expect you to remember all of these, but this slide in particular will hopefully be very helpful for you in the future. So in addition to CAPS and UHS, the Dean of Students Office is a really helpful resource for students. So if they're needing like support academically or needing academic notification about like an ongoing health concern or mental health concern, the Dean of Students Office can be extremely helpful with that. Also, we have an office called the Office of Student Conflict Resolution. The acronym is OSCAR. So that's a office that helps students navigate all sorts of different conflicts, whether it's a roommate concern, whether it's a challenge they're having maybe with an instructor or a peer. That office is really helpful for navigating those sorts of things. We also have SAPAC, which is located in the Michigan Union, actually across the hall from CAPS. You'll find both of those offices on that fourth floor of the Michigan Union. And SAPAC stands for Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Center. And then Mary Jo talked all about Wolverine Wellness found over on Fletcher Street in University Health Services, which is where you'll also find the Collegiate Recovery Program. And then lastly, we have a Student Accessibility Accommodations Services office. And that is the office where students can get accommodations for like testing or academic accommodations or disability accommodations. And we work very closely with them to provide supports for students and documentation as well. Next slide, please. And I think that closes me out to hand it off to Mary Jo.
Thanks, Kayla. I just thought it would be fun to sort of end the official presentation with sharing some new initiatives that are coming up and also some upcoming events that might be of interest to you and or your students. So we are embarking on the coordination of something called social prescribing. And social prescribing is really using campus and community resources in response to different sorts of health needs. And so what happens is, in particular, we are going to start with looking at loneliness and isolation. And so we are just in the initial stages of doing a pilot, but I thought it might be really fun for you to see. This is something that we're just doing right now. So I got this latest data, but it is looking at how we can use some of our existing resources, whether it's the nature and nature resources that we have on campus or arts resources to help people, especially who might be experiencing loneliness or isolation. And social prescribing is widely used across the globe. It's widely used in European countries. And so we're really trying to think about how we can do this at the University of Michigan. The Nature RX program has been in existence for a while. We are piloting the Arts RX starting in fall, and then looking at sort of exercise as medicine. But what it allows people to do is use some of these resources on campus that people might not really think improves their mental health and well-being, but the literature is really clear that it does. So I just wanted to share this social prescribing initiative is something that will really take form through spring and summer and then really be launched as a pilot in the fall. Next slide. What you see in the red box here is Wolverine Wellness in cooperation with Dr. Lindsay Mortensen, who's our Chief Mental Health Officer, just was awarded an agility grant to look at sort of the harm that's happening on college campuses, especially as it relates to gambling. Many of you probably know that gambling is sort of ubiquitous. It's everywhere now. It's on your apps. It's on every ad. We have big name stars who are sort of promoting gambling, and really studying it here at the University of Michigan, thinking about what the risks are, and also really putting together a gambling harm prevention strategy. And so we were just awarded this grant, and that is starting as we speak. Had a meeting about it today. Next slide. This is really timely. As you can see, the Mental Health on College Campus Conference is actually next week. It's April 1st and 2nd. There's actually going to be a social prescribing panel at this conference, but part of the reason I'm sharing is that any student can go for absolutely free. And so just wanted to get it on the radar for any of you who thinks this might be an area that students might be interested in. Any of you might be interested in it. It is an in-person conference, but this is a way for faculty, staff, and students to come together and really sort of think about what are the innovations, what's happening, not just at U of M, but across the country. Next slide. And for those of you maybe who joined us last time when we talked about this subject, we are sort of in between year 1 and year 2 of our JED campus initiative. And this really is a comprehensive strategic plan for suicide prevention. And so the top priority areas have been identified, and there are work teams assembling right now to make sure that we are addressing the issues that are unique to the University of Michigan while utilizing this national model. And so just reminding people that we are in sort of between year 1 and year 2, which is really where the action teams will start. Next slide. Kayla, I'm not sure if you want to come off of, but we both, I think, really wanted to share the best ways to get a hold of us, but maybe more importantly, get a hold of our offices, because we both represent an amazing groups of staff that do this work, that really consider themselves partners with family members and parents to help navigate this. There's also Instagram posts if you'd like to sort of follow along and see sort of what the events are or what we're doing. That might be another way to get a hold of us if you have individual questions after tonight.
Thank you both so much for sharing all of this information. I know that it is very timely and very important to so many of our students and their families and supporters. We're going to pause for just a moment, and I'm taking a look at another screen that has the questions that have been submitted through the Q&A. I want to say to our participants, there's still time if you want to enter questions. We will be reviewing to determine the questions that are really specific to these two speakers, or questions that I may be able to answer from the perspective of the Dean of Students area and maybe broader student life programs and services. So Feel free to submit additional questions, but thank you all for the questions that we will start off with. I think this first one is for Kayla. The question is asking if CAPS, or if I'll say Counseling and Psychological Services on campus, do they offer DBT groups? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, great question. So all of our clinicians at CAPS are considered to be generalists. So what that means is they're trained in a variety of therapeutic approaches and interventions. We do have several therapists that do utilize DBT skills, myself included. I'm actually embedded in the College of Engineering, so I'll use a lot of DBT skills in my one-on-one work with students. And I know we're always developing new groups that are available on a semester basis. So that is something, we'll probably be looking into for the future. But in general, to answer your question, most of our therapists are trained in a variety of modalities, DBT being one of them. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you so much. The next question is one I'd ask you both to say, share information about how your units handle this. If a student has signed a HIPAA release or wishes to sign a HIPAA release, how do they go about that in your areas? And is there any one central place that might serve access to information for both of your areas?
Yeah, and I can jump in and answer this. Mary Jo, feel free to do that as well. It's a very timely question. In a few months, this process will look a little bit different, and there will be a more central place where students will be able to do this. But as it is right now, currently, students would have to fill out the HIPAA release on the MyChart portal for UHS providers. And for CAPS, they would have to connect with their therapist at CAPS to complete a release of information for the therapist to be able to communicate it all with parents. And the students would have to give permission for that explicitly. And Mary Jo, feel free to add.
Yeah, thanks, Kayla. I was having a hard time finding my unmute. So in the chat, I think I'm going to I'm just putting in the link right now to the Health Information Management Office at UHS, and that actually details health records. It actually has a link right there for family members and the release of information. So that is the best resource for finding out how you would do it. It also has sort of the specifics that is there a HIPAA release, sort of what does that encompass, how long does it last, and those kinds of things. And maybe most importantly, that website will take you and give you the phone number for the experts who work in that office who can give you all of that information.
Yeah, and similarly, I just posted a link to our CAPS website that has information regarding confidentiality, since it's a little bit different under Michigan Mental Health Code.
Thank you both for that. Can you both also talk about students, and I think you touched on this, but there's a question about students having access to counseling and support, and I'm thinking broadly wellness support and assistance throughout the summer. Mary Jo, would you start us off?
Yeah, I would say that Wolverine Wellness is in a little bit different position, that we actually see students all the time, spring, summer, winter, fall. And so students can get wellness coaching all year round. Even if they're not enrolled in a class in spring and summer, they can. The same is true for the collegiate recovery program. They can participate in that. And so we often are seeing students, obviously the population sort of shrinks a little bit in spring and summer. And we have staff that are doing orientation and things like that, but we do see students all year round.
That's wonderful. I'm going to take the next question and invite you both to add to this if you'd like to. It's a little bit, it's different from our topic tonight, but I think also very timely. The writer asks who to contact if the student has had issues with a fraternity that they have joined or that they're a part of. I've worked with fraternity and sorority life on campus, but also recognize that we have about 120 Greek letter organizations that are not a part of the social fraternities and sorority structure. So if your student has joined a fraternity, a Greek letter organization, or an organization that regards itself as a fraternity or sorority, if it is a part of the National Panhellenic Council, the Panhellenic Association, the Interfraternity Council, or the Multicultural Greek Council, because we have 4 Greek councils that are part of fraternity and sorority life. You would contact Fraternity and Sorority Life at Michigan, and I can drop a link in here in just a moment. If you're not sure if they're part of those councils, you can look at the Fraternity and Sorority Life website and search the name of your student's organization to see if it's part of one of those 4 councils. Those councils are governance structures, if you're unfamiliar. But if you search and find that the organization is not a part of fraternity and sorority life, you can always contact the Dean of Students office or the Center for Campus Involvement for support or assistance with any problems a student may be having. Sometimes a student is wondering about organizational concerns. Sometimes a student is having something that's more serious in terms of challenge in their experience or with members. The Dean of Students office, because we do so much outreach and support and follow up about student concerns, especially if it involves harm, but also if it involves leadership. And then the Center for Campus Involvement is the university authority that recognizes every Michigan student organization that is registered. So one angle, the Center for Campus Involvement, is to look at the organization and their contacts and support and assistance, and then the Dean of Students office there for student support, your individual student or individual students who are having any experience with an organization on campus that's not beneficial, or, God forbid, if it's harmful. The next question is, I think that a couple of these questions are asking for more explanation about students having access to CAPS in ways that they describe in their questions as long-term or continuing. And another one is also talking about an out-of-state student working with CAPS over the summer. So they actually are 2 now that I've sorted it out a little bit. But Kayla, can you talk about
Yeah.
those types of support?
Yeah, absolutely. So at CAPS, we operate under a brief treatment model, but we don't have a session limit for students. So there is no like specific number of sessions that students can attend, but we do operate under a brief treatment model. And due to state licensing guidelines, we can only work with students who are currently at that time in the state of Michigan. So if students are out of state, they cannot meet with their therapist from CAPS just due to state licensing guidelines because of the way that licensing boards work.
Thank you. Would you
Yeah.
also say a little bit about the length of care and service through CAPS? I think the person is asking whether or not there's something different when can an exception be made if an individual needs continued long-term care?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely take each student's situation into account because no 2 situations are the same. So we consider multiple factors when it comes to providing care. And one of those is if what the student's concerns are outside of the scope of what we can provide adequate support at CAPS for. That's when we would make a referral to a community provider. And there are cases where, whether it's like due to specific financial constraints, insurance challenges, or identities, where it makes sense for a student to stay with CAPS and not go out into the community. So that is something that we are able to do, and there is flexibility around that. And typically, our average number of sessions that students will attend falls between like 3 to 4 a semester. But like I said earlier, we do not have a session limit. But often students, when they are engaged in ongoing treatment at CAPS, will see a therapist on a biweekly basis. So if that's something that the student is able to get the support that they need through that biweekly therapy, then that would be an option that would be offered. Hopefully that answers that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Um, For anyone who joined the call after it has started or the Zoom, please know that this session has been recorded, is being recorded at the moment. And in just a couple days, we will not only email the link out to the folks who signed up, registered for this session, but we will also take the recording and place it on our YouTube. So there's an MFamily YouTube. You'd be able to go and see the whole collection of virtual conversations and coffee chats that are recorded and out there. So all of the sessions this year, including this one. So you'll have an opportunity, you'll have two ways that you can get the information just for registering and for making it here tonight. I also want to thank Saj McBurrows, who's working in the background, our grad intern. Saj, thank you for putting in the chat for me the links to the Center for Campus Involvement and to Fraternity and Sorority Life. And with that, I'm going to move ahead. I think that's all the questions that we have for now. So again, I want to thank Mary Jo Dupree and Kayla Douglas for spending this time with us and sharing some really helpful information. There's so much available at Michigan, and it's also very informative and educational for our students. So thank you for all the great work that both of your areas do. We will transition. Yeah, feel free to stay. I've just got one more slide that I'd like to share, unless Saj is coming in to share something new. No, just a smile. That's good too. Okay. So I have, this comes from the Dean of Students office and realizing, let's see. Let me see how I can stop sharing my slides for just a moment. Hopefully it has stopped sharing. I'm going to refresh. We receive a lot of questions between March and early April from families of students who are in their first year, and probably just as many from families of students who are about to graduate. So lots of excitement on both ends. People are still learning how Michigan describes the end of the year and what to expect around commencement. So I first want to talk about the end of the year. And I made a quick slide to share that information and just need to make sure I can multitask well in Zoom webinar format and get that information for you all. So I'm going to bring that on screen. Let me enlarge it so that you can see it. So if you are thinking about planning for your students' return, or if they're going to spend the summer elsewhere, just not in Ann Arbor, and you're trying to decipher the end of classes, what a study day is, when exams are, and when they actually are in their last day where they, would be in Ann Arbor. Please make sure you talk with your student. And if they use any of these terms, we hope it's helpful for you. And know that there can be exceptions. Some faculty will end classes right around the 22nd, for example, and also students have completed all their final coursework, or if there is an exam associated with it. So I don't want you to take for granted that all students leave on a specific date. But as you are planning and you talk with your student may say, I do have a study break in there before my exams begin. And they may say that I should be done with my exams by a certain date. And they'll give you that date. Hopefully, it's going to be somewhere before May 2nd. They should be really at a point where exams are finished by or on May 1st. And then commencement activities at Michigan for all of our schools and colleges and many, many communities and programs also offer celebrations, just a wide array. So when you see that we talk about commencement as a multi-day series, that is very real at Michigan. So again, you want to talk to your student about, your graduating student, about their plans for commencement. Don't be shy to ask them, how many celebrations will you be participating in? Can you have guests? And then ask them for those details. And then you can plan your travel, the logistics of moving around campus. Of course, a lot of people, many people look forward to the major celebration in the big house for commencement. And so your student may say, I'm just going to one, and it's going to be in the big house. So um, just be on the lookout for that information and work with them to then plan their travel away from Ann Arbor. Your first year student, for those of you with a first year student who lives in residence halls, not the apartments, but the actual residence halls on campus, they will have a certain move out date and a procedure to follow. Housing sends out quite a few announcements to students, but they also publish this in their outreach and newsletters. So look for those dates as well. Some students will be looking for storage options, shipping options, and the usual transportation options. So in our next virtual conversation, we'll be sure to give you really that next wave of details. But at this point, you may be needing to plan travel dates. So we wanted to get this information to you now. So with that, I think we are ready to come to a close for tonight. If you are not in Michigan right now, please know that today was a chilly but sunny and otherwise beautiful day. Our warm days are coming soon, and the next time you come into this area, if it is this spring, please take time to appreciate the beauty of all of the grassy areas and variety of trees and plants in and around Ann Arbor. It really is lovely this time of year. But we wish you all well, and if you have any questions, please contact the Dean of Students office and we can direct you from there. All right, everyone, take care and have a great night.